All right, A pushers, this is Mr. Aimatsu, and we're going to take another DBQ, a couple more steps here today. So the last time that we went through a little YouTube series, we talked about marking the prompt. We talked about doing a do, what, predict. We talked about basically the analysis of the document. On the left-hand side, we're going to summarize. On the right-hand side, we're going to try to answer the prompt. And up on the top, we're going to talk about what we call sourcing. Again, if you don't understand what sourcing is, that's A-okay right now, but at the very least, you should be able to summarize a document. Not necessarily mean you're going to be able to do all documents, as I kind of spoke in class, and as you guys know, sometimes documents can be very difficult, but you should also be able on the right-hand side at least answer the prompt. So those are the kind of two required skills that we're really going to focus a little bit more on in a second. We're going to review those skills, and we're going to add two more skills. The two more skills, actually three more skills we're going to have. We're going to take this to a next level called the category chart, which is going to help create our body paragraphs and help create our thesis. And then we're going to talk about what our introduction should look like. And we're going to talk about the skill called contextualization. So a lot of that going on, a lot of stuff to get to. Let's get to it. All right. So over here, we got our prompt. Notice that this is a 1993. Let me go ahead and bring it down. This is a 1993 test. So this is really written old. And you'll notice that in the prompt here, this is an old prompt. You're probably never going to see anything worded like this. Again, we're going to use DBQs just for the thinking skills, not necessarily for the way in which it's going to be tested. We're just going to use these kind of as a little practice for the skills. So although it's 1993 and although the prompt is a little bit weird, nonetheless, we should be able to do a thesis. We should be able to summarize. We should be able to do all these skills I just mentioned. Okay? So again, let's go ahead and break into it. So although New England, let's go ahead and circle New England, and the Chesapeake region, by this time we should have known this. Again, we're clearly now into period 2, and we're talking about the colonies here and some of the characteristics of colonies. And they're both settled largely by English origin. By 1700, that's my time frame. I'm going to box it. The regions had evolved into two distinct societies. Why did this difference in development occur? So we are trying to figure out what is the difference between the New England region and the Chesapeake region. What are different about their societies, even though they are both English? Okay. Right in the middle, we're going to do the do, what, predict before we get to document A. So here we go. Do, what, predict. And some students who have taken the AP class, again, are already going, whoa, 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 whoa. We would never see this type of directive verb. We'd see the word analyze or describe or evaluate. And that's, again, why this is an older one. But again, the information on this is kind of appropriate to our time setting, so we're just going to use that. So do, what, predict. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to try to figure out why what? Why there was a difference between New England, I don't know why I capitalized it, I think it's important, and the Chesapeake, so I'll do that as well. Now, obviously, we already kind of identified two separate groups, so I'm actually going to make my predictions separately. Okay. Now, based off of the vocabulary video, based off of a couple of things that we've been discussing in class, I mean, we can already talk about some of these differences. First of all, there's going to be some focus on religion up here, probably economics down here. This is going to affect their society. There's going to be some social roles that are different. Down here, definitely social roles are different, especially with the importation of slaves because of its economics. And then politically also, we're going to probably have some political like government changes as a response because of that. So immediately, some of the students are going, whoa, 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 this is starting to sound like some familiar categories. And that's what I would say. I'd say some of the ways, if you got like a very kind of odd and kind of open-ended prompt like this, and it's not really telling you very specifically, I would always go to what I call my bread and butter categories. Ways to think or predict that the answer might be. So those are usually political reasons, economic reasons, and social reasons. So that's the lens that I'm going to use for my prediction. Whenever I read this, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, was this political, economic, and social, and why? Now, an awesome AP student and an awesome AP thesis will take this a little bit further. They won't just say political reasons. They'll say political reasons, and they'll actually group a couple ideas into those reasons. That's going to be your challenge today. I'm only going to look at 3 random documents, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys kind of how to go to the skills. But your job really is to take these words, political, economic, and social, and say, well, what really was the differences politically between these two? What really were the economic difference, and what were the social differences? And we can make some guesses about those based off of our prediction. All right, let's go into it. Let's go into document A. Hey, it's John Winthrop again. We keep on coming to this guy. So we'll go ahead and look at this guy. So John Winthrop, a model of Christianity. It's written on the Arbea. And what you know is this is looking very, very similar to the one that we had just done. So I'm actually going to go ahead and skip this as in fact word for word the same one. What I noticed as a teacher though is John Winthrop must be something important. If 1993 he was like the first document, and in 2010 he was the first document, must be very important. So I'll let you guys read that. As you read that, was he talking about political, economic, social? He might be talking about all 3. And if it's all 3, what is he saying politically? What is he saying economically? What is he saying socially? Try to write those answers over there. Okay, look at this one. Document B, getting really into it. All right. So let's go ahead and figure this out. This is ship's list found for New England. Okay. And interesting. All right. So if we look at all these things, it looks like, I don't know, might be Plymouth. Maybe that's how they split Plymouth. Don't really know. But it looks like this is happening around 1635. And these are the people bound for New England. So these are the people coming from Europe going, oh, here, we'll actually draw it geographically correct. Here are the people from Europe, specifically England. We'll put England up here. And they're going to North America. So these are all the people. And this is describing to the people. Oh my gosh, what is that? That's a star with a head on it. That's not a person. But you get what I'm saying. All right. So over here, what we notice up here is we got a minister, then he has his wife, his daughter, his son, his daughter, his servant, his wife. This is all one big family. Let's look down here. He's a tailor, has a job, not a minister like the other person. He's a tailor. Notice that he brought his wife, his family, and his son, and a servant. Okay. Oh, here's another person. Don't know what his relationship, but he brought his wife, his son. So again, we got 2 families here. Over here, one more thing, families. Now it looks like husbandman. I don't know what a husbandman is. Oops, sorry. I don't even know what I'm looking at. Husbandman down here. Don't know what that. Obviously, it looks like they might not be married. Maybe what we call a single man. Maybe what we call a bachelor. So I'm going to put single man because they're not with anybody else. And I don't see any children. All right. So what do I look at here about the New English colonies? Over here on the left-hand side, sorry, go back up here. Remember, this is about the New English colonies. Over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to say like this. Hey, they came as families. Well, how might that affect the development? Well, economically, I don't know if we're going to have a plantation-based system. So economics, I'm going to put this, not plantation. That's a major difference. We know in the Chesapeake region, there's going to be massive plantations. It's probably going to be family-oriented economics or communal. Social, definitely. I don't really see anything political, but I definitely see, I actually found something political. Just thinking about it. Very interesting. So I'll show you what I think as a historian. Now I'll try to really argue it. Remember that what the word argue means. But anyway, socially, I see that in New England, they came as families. So immigrants were families. Okay, again, I'm so sorry that I can't see this, but here I go. New England immigrants were mainly families. Okay, now politically, I just kind of looked at this minister.
Attention students on campus.
Sorry for the interruption. It happens. You know that.
Diaz, please call home. Eddie Diaz, please call home. Thank you.
All right. So politically over here, which is interesting, I see a minister and he comes first. So I'm going to make the argument, may not be right, but I'm going to make the argument that since he came first and he's number 1 on this whole like list on the ship, he probably is the most important. And the fact that he's a minister might show some religious values in government. They might be using religion in their government. All right. So that's one that kind of attacks the ship's list, which is document B here. Go ahead and take a look at a couple other ones. Oh, here. We'll actually stop on this one then. So we'll stop for Virginia. And we'll let you guys read the other documents on your own. Again, kind of just attacking ones that might cause a little difficulty. So we got Virginia, July 1635. Let's go back to the other document, see what the age time was. Kind of interesting. 1635, March. So just a few months later. These guys are not bound for England, but they're bound for Virginia, as we know, which is that kind of Chesapeake region. Now look at this list. young man, very young man, very, very, very young man, young man, young man, young man. I mean, look at how old these guys are. Look, they're not even your age. I mean, a couple 16-year-olds in there. As I kind of told you guys a little bit earlier inside of our class, that a lot of people were coming either for two reasons. I'd say most of them were for economic reasons, a few for religious reasons. And the people that were coming for economic reasons were largely poor men that had no land in England. At this time, having land in England was super, super important because you could grow stuff on it. You could make money off that stuff, right? We don't have the internet. We don't have technology. We don't have cars. Basically, the basic way that people are trading and bartering is food and supplies and some finished goods, right? Like a shirt and stuff like that. So they see land as an opportunity. And what you see here is a bunch of young men coming down. I'm going to go ahead and read this a little bit more because this kind of has some interesting stuff in here. So we'll check it. These immigrant names are being transported to Virginia, embarked in the Merchant's Hope, Hugh Weston, Master per examination, the Minister of Gravesend, touching their conformity to the church and discipline of England. That's a very interesting moment there. All right. They have taken an oath of allegiance and supremacy. I might even underline that inside there. So I kind of spoke about this a little bit earlier, and if I haven't, we'll go ahead and remind you that, remember, a lot of people that were coming into Virginia, to Jamestown, had actually pledged allegiance to King James and the Church of England, which had been becoming a little Catholic at that time. So these are individuals who are not leaving for religious reasons, but leaving for economic reasons. Okay, so summary on the left-hand side, many single males went to the Chesapeake. Again, I'm not using Virginia because that's not what it says on the prompt. How might this change things? Politically. We talked about land being important and rights. Perhaps rights given to men without land. Hey, these guys don't have land. They might get some rights given. Hey, maybe when they go to Virginia, they'll get some land and then they'll get some what? Rights. So something to think about as we go a little bit further. Socially, how's that development going to be a little bit differently down in the South? Well, guess what? There's going to be a lot of single men. They may cause intermarriage with Indians, as was true of John Wolfe and Pocahontas, as we know. John Rolfe would be an example of that. So, socially, they're going to be single men. They might have intermarriage because guess what? These men want to continue their history, continue their family. They've made all this wealth. They probably want to spread it on. And you're going to probably see that. Economically, we're going to see single males working, and I'm going to say an agricultural lifestyle. Okay, their focus on making money is through agriculture. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Oh, sorry about that again. There you go. Economic, socially. Go back here. Single men, they're intermarriage. Example, that would be John Rolfe. Economic, single males were working in agriculture. So I'm going to go ahead and pause. I'm not going to go show you guys anyone else because that's really the hard work of the DBQ is really understanding the primary documents. So imagine that you've marked all the documents. Some were political, some were economic, some were social. That's you marking. And you get here at the end, and you get set end of documents for question 1. What I would like you guys to do is write down political. Now, if you have different categories or answers than I do, that's absolutely appropriate. Remember, it's how you organize. It's how you argue it. All right. But in my opinion, I think this is a good way to organize. These are the 3 categories. Now, in my opinion, you probably should have better details than this. If in your thesis you just say they were different political, economic, and social, I think actually on the test you'll get a point. But that's not how we're going to teach you. We're going to teach you how to do some good writing. So we want to have a couple examples that bind ourselves together. So perhaps politically, remember we're talking about some differences. So you might want to actually even break this up politically, economically, and socially between Virginia or the Chesapeake, New England and the Chesapeake. New England and the Chesapeake. Because remember, we're supposed to be talking about the differences. And if some of you guys are like, oh, that looks like our comparison chart that we did, just a little bit more whacked out. Yeah, of course, because this is one of the thinking skills that we're trying to do. We're trying to think about comparison right now. So a good student won't just say political in their thesis or in their category chart that they have right here. A good student will say, you know what, it'll be in New England, it'll have a family structure while this is a single male structure. Economically, they're going to be in New England for subsistence. Where over here, they're going to be using cash crops for agriculture. And socially, it looks like families. Again, kind of like politically, whereas this is done by single males. And how are they going to either have certain roles or how are they going to get their government? Okay. So, going back to our previous documents, document A that we have, remember that on the test, you're going to have questions 1, 2, and 3, but, it's not document A, excuse me. Document B that we have, hey, we had some ideas. It's a political, economic, social. So I'm going to go ahead, and that was only for New England. So I'm going to put B for New England, politically, economic, and social. We also found out that C, remember C, looks like this, just marked it, the one on Virginia. Cool. We also found that that is going to be in there, all places. Now there might be one. I mean, if you look above here, this is only a rebellion against Virginia. So this is probably only going to be Chesapeake. So document H, and if it's a rebellion, I'm guessing it's going to be political. Let's just say it's political. We're going to put C and H there. That's kind of funny, Chesapeake, CH here. But anyways, that kind of gives you an idea of organization. All right. What you would do is you could create a number of different, this basically organizes your entire essay for you. So we could have 3 body paragraphs, one on political, one on economic, one on social. We could have 2 body paragraphs, one about all the New England differences, put 1. Or we can have all of the Chesapeake differences. I'll put 2 here so that you can see. Okay, but basically right here should be a list of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, everything all the way up to H. Every one of these documents should be fitting into what we call this category chart. And again, you can create a category chart many ways. Some of you guys might be looking at this going, that's a hot mess, Naimatsu. I would like to do mine differently. That's okay. The idea is to have some sense of organization before you get into your essay. Okay, so now that we have this, we need to go ahead and write an essay. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open up my computer. I'm going to teach you guys a couple things on what to do. So as I escape out of this, which is right there, cool. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit smaller so we can come to it. On my APUSH website, when you go to Tips, Tricks, and Resources, we'll come to this document. And let's see here. Underneath, I think it's DBQ Literacy Resources. There's going to be a thing that says sentence templates. And there it is right there. Whoa, way too far. Way too far. Sentence template says paragraph templates for the DBQ. So what I have done, and I have edited this since last year. Let's go ahead and try to go into a full screen to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see. Okay, well, that wasn't really helpful, but whatever. So what you guys can see is I've kind of put this into red, yellow, and green. And basically the red are things that you should talk about before the event time period, and the while also is during the time period. Basically, if this is key concept, let's say 2.1, this would all be 1.1 right here. And where it goes to while in the orange, that would all be about 1.2. And this is where you would talk about 2.1. All right. What contextualization is you have to give me about 6 to 8 sentences of what happened prior to the Chesapeake and New England. So right here in the prior to, some great stuff about Christopher Columbus, the Native Americans, how they were treated. That would be great. This one, why colonists began coming over here, why why young men for economic reasons came down to Virginia, and why some people for religious reasons came up there. That would be awesome here. And that kind of gets you to our thesis. And what is our thesis about? It's not about Christopher Columbus. It's about what happened when those colonists began changing their 2 different colonies. My apology for another interruption. Cool. So there's that. Here's some advice down here. Contextualization, sentence prior to, while the information must meet the following criteria, it must relate to the prompt. It must be smooth. For instance, if you were to talk about the Bering Strait this whole time, and then you go immediately into colonization, I'm like, well, how did we go from Indians crossing the Bering Strait all the way to colonization? So something to think about. Thesis don't continue to blah, 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 blah. And this is kind of interesting for next year. This right, D. Nearly all prompts will ask you to take the stand, and there are always going to be a few documents that are going to be against things. So you might want to use the word although and, except and those type of things that shows some kind of level of thinking. So to continue your homework, what you guys should do is write a few sentences about what you learned about Christopher Columbus and maybe the Columbian Exchange. You should write a few sentences right here about perhaps what, why the different colonies began developing the way they did. And lastly, down here, this is your thesis. It's real easy. All you have to do is basically put all this information, and use your category chart. So kind of look at this. It says during, and I'm going to go ahead and write this for you. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go back to the ImageMate software. That is not there, but I will get it locked and loaded here for you a second. Give me a sec. ImageMate. There we go. Awesome. So right here, as you guys can see, it says political, economic, and social. So using the sentence template, this is what I'm going to say. And I'm going to use my prompt with my time periods as well. So during the 17th century, notice that in the prompt it says by 1700, and 17th century means 1600, so I'm going to say all the 16. During the 17th century, New England and the Chesapeake developed differently due to political, economic, and social reasons. Now, again, most students in the AP class would say this is not a thesis. This is not acceptable as a thesis. And actually this is, because it's not repeating the prompt and also have very clear categories. Again, a good student would say politically because in the Northeast it was family, while in the Chesapeake it was single males. Right, and then in theirs, they're going to talk about, in the body paragraph later, they're going to give me up the documents, hey, in New England, this shows it was family-oriented, while in the Chesapeake, it shows it was single males, okay? So that's basically what I'd like you guys to do. So on a separate sheet of paper later, you're going to go ahead and do a prior to with some information. By the way, if you don't want to use prior to, you want to use the word before, I'm okay with that, all right? The idea last year in the AP Euro was just to give you those skills. Now you can go a little bit further. While, do it, and then do that. So you should have, after you do your category chart, you should have a one paragraph. That one paragraph should have about 3 to 5 sentences of what happened way, way, way before, 3 to 5 sentences about what happened right before, and ends with a thesis that kind of looks like that. So remember, DBQ writing is a skill. It's a skill that needs to be worked on. You're never going to get it the right way. It takes many, many months and perhaps even many, many years to go ahead and do this the right way. I still learn a lot. So please understand, you might not get this the first time, and that's okay. If you're confused about any of the previous skills, like marking the prompt, the do, what, predict, or anything else, or the how we analyze the document, on the left-hand side we summarize, the right-hand side we answer the prompt, and on top we do sourcing, refer back to that previous YouTube video, because this is kind of a little bit more of a focus on the category chart and also the introduction. Okay, now we're on the next step to go to hopefully the body paragraphs, and we'll be writing our essays in no time. All right, A pushers, keep trying, keep on those skills.